Yo, what is up guys and welcome to another Wild Rift video. Today I got you guys an updated tier list for every single role in the game. There are two new champions in the S+ tier. Can you guess who they are? I'm gonna give you... No, I'm not gonna tell you which role it is, but let me know in the comments who you think are the two new champions that are in the S+ tier. One of them is very obvious and the other one you need to think about properly as well. Alright. Let's get into it. So timestamps are in the description to skip to the Baron lane, jungle, mid lane, whatever the hell you want. Yeah, let's start. So this is the Baron lane, and my opinion has changed on some champions, even though they didn't get changed. And the first one is Renekton, right? Like, my opinion has changed about him because after seeing how strong he really is, in my opinion, he's the strongest Baron laner in the game. Like, you guys remember that buff they did to Renekton, where his ultimate now gives you a lot more HP, right? I remember all the way in the beginning, I thought it was a bit of a neglectable buff. That's what I thought before actually trying it. Then I tried it and I played against it and I noticed, wait a damn minute. Every single fight, I am either dying against the Renekton and he's surviving with 100 HP, you know, which is the buff to the ultimate, or I, as a Renekton, am able to win the fight and survive with around 100 HP again. And, you know, in the beginning I thought it was just a bit lucky, but it happened over and over and over again. And to this day, the buff they did to the ultimate is massive. Massive buff. And for some reason, it's massive. When you max the ultimate, when you're level 13, your ult will give you 950 HP, which is insane, right? Like, just for the HP, and then of course buffing your abilities as well. And in the later stages of the game, Renekton has enough damage to sort of assassinate squishy champions, as well as tank everything with his ultimate because of that increased HP. So then that makes him the best Baron laner in the game. And of course, early game, he's also one of the strongest in the game, right? So he doesn't necessarily have a weakness anymore. He's even stronger early game now. And even in the late game, he can still assassinate squishies while being a very good tank and frontline for his team. Ornn is also a really good tank and frontline. And the thing about Ornn is his passive is so beautiful. You know, imagine you have a jungler Lee Sin, he's snowballing the game. You simply build an item next to him and he can just snowball even harder. You know, if your ADC is doing really well, you buy an item next to your ADC, right? You build an item to give them that passive 5 items. This passive alone can save like a whole minute or even more for one of your teammates. Because they won't have to go back, right? Like, if it's a champion that doesn't struggle much with mana or doesn't have any mana at all, then giving them this free item is so damn powerful because they just don't have to go back. They don't have to go back. It's so good. And then Ornn himself, his ultimate is so powerful, his CC, and just his damage as well. You know, he does a lot of damage to tanks, but he also does a lot of damage to squishies. He's just overall an absolute machine of a champion. Sett. I remember Sett used to be broken tier, but he doesn't feel broken anymore. He got a slight nerf to his second ability, but I honestly don't even think that's what makes him balanced now, because everything else is the same, right? Well, actually, Titanic Hydra got nerfed, so that's actually a bit of a nerf to Sett, because that is a core item on Sett. But he just doesn't feel that overwhelming anymore. He's still very strong, don't get me wrong, right? Like, his second ability, very powerful. Frontlining ability, very powerful. His ultimate, oh my god, it's so strong. Especially in this meta where people are going to be picking Swain and stuff like that to frontline. You just, or Renekton, right? When a Renekton ults and you as a Sett ult the Renekton in the enemy team, you're gonna do bonus damage because Renekton's ult gives him more HP. You know, it works like that. Sett is also a counter, for example, to, you know, Lulu, for example. If she ults someone, you can then ult that someone into the enemy team to then use Lulu's power to herself, because the more HP, the more bonus HP the enemy has, the more damage Sett's ultimate does. Garen got a massive buff, guys, and he's so strong. He's so strong. It's ridiculous what happened to Garen. Like, honestly ridiculous. You know what's also ridiculous? That I'm giving away only 2 skins, to be honest. I don't know. But yeah, I'm only giving away 2 skins. If you want to enter the giveaway, put down a comment under the video. You actually have a very high chance of winning, because I only really upload like 2 or 3 videos a week on this channel right now. Again, reminder, HellsDevil Plus channel, the link is in the description. I upload on that channel almost every single day, and I even upload 2 videos a day over there. So make sure you check out HellsDevil Plus, look it up on the search bar on YouTube, or check it out, link in the description. It's going to be the first link. So in case you're missing my content, you can find a lot more on that channel. It's also Wild Rift content. So Garen, yeah, ridiculous. Even from level 3 already, he becomes so powerful with that buffed second ability. It's honestly just ridiculous how strong he is. Darius is very, very good as well. Honestly, he's just good. I don't really have too much to say about him. You know, into this type of tank meta, you know, where you have Renekton's, Ornns, Set, Volibears, all of that type of champions. Darius is going to be very good because it's not necessarily a one-shotting meta. In a sense where tanks are just very, very good right now. They're not going to get one-shot. So picking a Darius, you can sort of counter these tanking champions by easily stacking up on them and then just flashing on the enemy backline and just destroying everyone with your ultimate, right? Fiora is quite good too. And with the buff to the Muramana, I want to say she feels actually a lot stronger now with the Muramana build. Even though if you look at the leaderboard, no one is building Muramana, it is very good. It is very much a very strong item on Fiora right now because it just gives her more damage right now. And it was already a good item on her. And Fiora fell off a little bit because of the Hullbreaker removal, right? Hullbreaker was always a core item on Fiora. So Fiora is a tad bit weaker than before. I cannot defend that, but she's still strong enough to be in the S+ tier. Now, Gwen is this secret broken pick, right? There are some people that know how broken she is, but there's a lot of people that just sort of ignore Gwen. They kind of forget Gwen exists, right? They're like, whatever, Gwen is just a champion. But whenever you see a good Gwen, then you again get that reality check of how broken this champion really is, right? It's funny because like I almost never see Gwen in games anymore, even though she's one of the most broken champions in the game right now. She's so powerful, so powerful. And then Camille is for a similar reason as Darius, very, very strong right now, but Camille needs a little bit more time to skill. Camille doesn't really win lanes as hard as Darius, and Camille, the only reason Darius is above Camille is because of the mid game. Mid game Darius is so powerful, can absolutely change the game during objective team fights. Camille cannot do that mid game. But late game, Camille does that. Like she turns the tides in the late game because it doesn't matter how tanky you are, Camille will kill you. It doesn't matter how far in the backline you are, Camille will reach you, right? That's the power of Camille in the late game. But then, as I said, Camille takes time to scale up. She struggles. She doesn't necessarily struggle early game. She does fine early game because of her shield and all of that and her second ability. But like mid game, it's a bit stale for this champion. Mid game, this is the all important stage of the game where a lot of games get decided, right? Like all the objectives get taken, all the turrets get pushed, all the jungles get invaded. This is where Camille cannot really assist her team as much as some of the other champions can, which is the reason why I've put her in the bottom S+ tier and not on the top of the S+ tier. Because if her mid game was okay, she would be top of the S+ tier. Vladimir, I mean, do I even really need to talk about Vladimir? The easiest, or this not easiest, the safest champion you can play, who also has like so much damage. It honestly feels unfair laning against a Vladimir. Every time you try to trade with him, he just heals himself back up with his first ability. And then his all-inning potential is very good as well. His turret diving is even better. He just ults you, uses his third ability, his second ability, and then after his second ability, he can just tank an extra turret shot with that as well, by the way. He uses another first ability to just do even more damage, and then he heals up, which allows him to tank another turret shot. Broken. Malphite, and this is honestly tank Malphite and AP Malphite. You don't necessarily want to play AP Malphite in top lane unless you're laning against a squishy champion, which as you can see in the S+ tier, there's not a single squishy champion. Maybe Vladimir, but he's not that squishy. But if you're laning against like a Kalista, against a Teemo, against a Yone even, well, yeah, Yone even. If you're laning against those types of champions in the Baron lane, it's a life hack to pick Malphite. That puts Malphite in the broken tier. Like, those particular games are always a free win. Always, in your lane at least, right? Like you always win your lane for free. Tank Malphite on the other hand is also very, very good, but you do want to be careful picking tank Malphite. For example, it's very good into Renekton. Well, it's decent into Renekton, but it's like not very good into, you know, Camille or Gwen or Fiora. Well, even against Fiora, it's fine, honestly. Like I never really struggle against the Fiora when I play Malphite. But you want to be careful against champions that want long fights, as I said, like the Darius and stuff like that. Yone is very good in the Baron lane because he's a tank counter. The reason that he's a tank counter is not necessarily because of his kit, but he always builds Blade of the Rune King first item. And he gets so much attack speed from lethal tempo that he'll always win the fight against any tank really whenever he gets that Blade of the Rune King. So you can, if your team needs more damage and the enemies are very tanky, pick Yone. Just pick Yone, build a Blade of the Rune King, you're gonna be a-okay. You can even build a Divine Sunderer if you really want to win those 1v1s even harder against the tanks. Like there's a lot of stuff you can do as a Yone. Volibear in the Baron lane, this is probably one of the champions that never loses a 1v1 early game, a mid game even. His turret diving is very good as well, right? Like when your jungler ganks, you can of course literally turn off the turret for 5 seconds. But late game he falls off, right? I guess this is the only reason he's not broken to you. He falls off really, really hard late game. Even though he wins almost every fight early game. Like, you know, it's like Renekton, but he's actually not as useful as Renekton in the late game. Because he can't really assassinate people as well as Renekton. He has a stun, I know. He has good damage with his second ability, I know. But he's really nothing close to what Renekton can do, right? Aatrox in the Baron lane feels like he's fallen off a little bit. I don't know, champions just feel very fast. It feels like it's a bit difficult to hit your abilities as an Aatrox, as opposed to before. I remember I remember all the champions got movement speed buff, right? And honestly, that hurt Aatrox quite a bit, because Aatrox wants everyone to be slow, so he can very easily hit all of these massive damaging abilities. But like in my eyes, it just feels like Aatrox doesn't really fit the meta right now. You know, it just... Even though he didn't necessarily get nerfed or anything like that, he just feels weaker. He just feels weaker. He's still good, don't get me wrong, right? Like, he's still top of S tier. It's still very, very good. But I'm trying to explain why he's not in the S plus tier anymore. Viego, guys. This is buffed Viego. I think even in the Baron lane, he's going to be very, very strong. The thing is, he pushes turrets incredibly quickly with his third ability. The only problem is, though, you can't really surprise the enemy with an engage in the Baron lane. He's a lot better in the jungle. Let's just say it like that. But he's so strong that he still works in the Baron lane. Jax. Jax is actually quite good. And a lot of people think the removal of Hullbreaker destroyed Jax, which is not necessarily true. I would even counter by saying the removal of Hullbreaker is actually good for Jax, because it's going to be harder for enemies to counter Jax now, because they don't have a Hullbreaker. Jax doesn't need a Hullbreaker. He can push. He's a Hullbreaker himself. He destroys turrets already. So the only reason I think Jax doesn't really work well in the current meta is because there's just so many mages that just counter him. So many champions, even physical damage champions, that just have abilities that damage him, regardless of him, you know, doing the dodging thing. There's so much true damage in the game. And honestly, it just feels like items are just not very good on Jax either. He just feels weak. He really doesn't feel like he did before. Just overall weak. Not weak, like again, he's still S tier, don't get me wrong, but like weak as in compared to the S plus tier champions, right? Mundo's weird story about Mundo. He got a nerf. You know, they nerfed his third ability. They nerfed damage, like he got a damage nerf. Titanic Hydra also got nerfed, which definitely hurts Mundo. But he's still okay. And okay as in like he just does well, but he's not gonna carry the game as easily for you anymore. He's a very good frontline, you know, with the healing and all of that. But he doesn't feel like that broken ass Mundo that we had before, right? But don't get me wrong, he's still very much a strong champion. Now Sion is definitely a champion. Well, actually Sion is, I don't know why I placed him here. Sion is weaker than this. I will still talk about Sion now because the remover of Hullbreaker definitely hurt Sion. The only reason Sion was very good was because of Hullbreaker. Now Sunfire Aegis did get buffed, which is also a contributing factor that some of the tankier champions are actually very good right now. But on Sion, you always really wanted to go Hullbreaker. That was the way to go, you know, to just destroy turrets, be an absolute menace on the map, you know, one of the most annoying split pushers to deal with. He can't really do that anymore now. Without a Hullbreaker, he just doesn't really do much damage to turrets anymore. He can still split push, but it takes him like twice as long, maybe even longer to push now. So he's actually still good. You can ult towards your team while split pushing and all of that, but he's just not very good right now. He's honestly just... wow, my nose is itching. He's honestly just not that good anymore. Urgot is fine. Yasuo is okay. You know, Gragas, AP Gragas. You don't want to play tank Gragas right now. It's not very good. But AP Gragas is fine too. He got a massive buff recently, but honestly, it doesn't even feel like it too much. He's not the old Gragas anymore. But a new skin is going to get released for him very, very soon. So I expect them to buff him very, very soon. Now, mind you, this is a solo Q tier list, which is why Shen is in the top of the A tier and not in the S plus tier. In a duo trio queue, I would put Shen in the S plus tier because a good duo or trio queue can absolutely abuse Shen's ultimate for good things. Like you can carry games super hard with it. Tryndamere, I mean, honestly, like some of the champions, I don't really know why I've placed them this low. Tryndamere is very good right now. His healing, his first ability heal was so damn powerful. And he wins lanes early game already now. Even against that Darius with full stacks, he'll just beat him with the lethal tempo and with the healing of the first ability. He'll literally just beat a Darius, which sounds ridiculous, right? Like, if you fight a Darius head on and you let him stack his passive on you, you're gonna lose, right? But no, it's not true. Tryndamere will just beat him. And then of course, level 5 Tryndamere is very, very strong in the Baron lane. Turret diving. You always have to be careful when you're low HP around an enemy Tryndamere because he's just gonna dive your turret without any care of the world, right? So that makes him a very, very strong champion right now. Kalista Baron lane. One of the best counters to these tankier types of champions. You just go Bladed Rune King and you win lane easily. You get yourself super fat, get a Runaan's Hurricane, and carry the game late game. Pantheon Baron lane, you know, the reason that Pantheon has fallen off so hard is because of all the new tank items being released and all of that. He just doesn't really fit the meta very well. He's still very much a strong champion, but he's not gonna win lane. He's not gonna win lane against all the other champions above him. Most of those, at least, like all those tankier types of champions, they're just gonna beat Pantheon. Irelia, same story, right? She kind of doesn't like this meta. She's also not gonna beat all of these top champions. She can do whatever combos she wants, but she's just not gonna beat an Orm, you know? She's just not gonna beat a Garen. She's just not gonna beat a lot of those top champions. She's just not. Tank Varus, very much, very strong, still in the Baron lane. I never see it. I made a video about it. You guys can definitely still play it. Make sure you check out the Unkillable Carry series and then the Varus video. Because yeah, it is hella broken. Akali is also very strong, but not in the Baron lane. Because she just doesn't do well against those tanks. I'm gonna quickly go through the rest of the champions. Teemo is fine. He's not weak. He's not strong. Cannon is actually quite weak. Honestly, he's even weaker than this. The nerf to his ultimate absolutely destroyed Cannon. The reason that Cannon got nerfed is because he had the highest win rate in China. But he has always been average in EU and NA. So now with that nerf, he's probably average in China now. But now he's absolute garbage in EU and NA. Because people just don't really know how to play with Cannon. All they know is just ult and go in. But there's like a lot of strategies with Cannon that, you know, we EU peasants don't know about. So now he's just useless. Nasa's top is fine. You can just farm and whatever, push turrets and all that. Riven is fine. This is before the Riven rework, by the way. The rework is going to be coming in 11 days. Warwick is okay. Kill, by the way. Kill got buffed, but she's still quite weak. She's really not that strong yet. I may have put her a little bit too low, but that's like, I am a good kill, and for me it's even difficult to carry games. So I'm sort of considering your average player picking up kill. Your average player is likely going to get absolutely blasted in lane, right? And I don't really know how to carry with kill. So only for like the really good kill players, kill could be bottom S tier, maybe. But kill was just, it's not enough. Like the buffs are not enough. Kha'Zix top, same story as Akali. It's a strong champion, but just doesn't really work very well top lane. Vayne top, honestly, you should smash your head into a wall if you play Vayne top. Kayn top lane, very weak right now, you know, the split push Kayn. Singed top, Olaf top, Graves top, don't play those. Wukong, after the rework, absolutely giga useless. Jarvan top, also giga useless. So now we get into the jungle tier list, and boom! There we go. There are the two broken champions. I wonder how many people guessed Lilia as well. Pretty sure most of the people did guess Viego, because it's very obvious. But I'm not sure how many people guessed the Lilia being broken. So let's talk about the elephant in the room, right? The Viego. The buff to Viego made him absolutely giga broken. And for some reason, now I don't get this reason, he's not permabanned. People are actually getting him in games. How? How? Did people not notice he got reworked? How are people getting him in games? I was able to get him like 3 games in a row. Every game I won. I currently, I think I have a 5 win streak on Viego. I played like 4 games after the rework and I won 1 before the rework. I haven't lost a single game on him after the rework. He's too damn broken. Way too broken. It's honestly unfair. It's honestly unfair. And another champion that's in the broken tier 2, Lilia. Way too overbuffed as well. I get why Riot wanted to buff Lilia, because no one played Lilia, but it's way too overbuffed. She's way too strong right now. Her abilities just do so much damage, and her movement speed as well. She can just traverse through the map like Lightning McQueen, like choo, 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 choo. She just goes everywhere. You can't catch her. You cannot catch her. She can even build a QSS if she really wants to, but most people will go stasis on her because you can basically flash into the enemy, hit all of them, ult, stasis, and then while they're asleep, you pretty much one-shot their whole team. That's what Lilia can do. She hard counters the tank meta too. So whenever you get the opportunity, pick Lilia. Literally, she should be pick or ban. Kha'Zix is very strong, but I do want to say the gap between broken tier and S plus tier is quite big right here, because Kha'Zix is a lot weaker than the two broken champions. He's okay, but then again, he does struggle against the tank meta, but he can still assassinate the backline. He's just as good at doing that as he has always been. Evelyn, I mean, Evelyn is Evelyn. Doesn't matter what happens, she's always broken. You can still one-shot people like crazy. It's just nothing people can do against that. Hecarim, very, very strong. The movement, he's like a weaker Lilia, basically. But he doesn't do as much damage to tanks. He's more of like a squishy destroyer. Very, very powerful. When you see a Hecarim coming at you, you're going to be scared for life because you can't stop him. When he ults you, it's an unstoppable movement. So there's not that much you can do into a Hecarim engaging onto you. You can't run away because the moment you see him, it's probably already too late to run away. Xin Zhao, one of the most underrated junglers in the game, and I have no idea why I haven't made a video about him yet. He's extremely powerful right now. He does so much damage. When he jumps on you, you're like, whatever, it's just a Xin Zhao. But then he just one-shots you and you're like, what the hell is that? How does a Xin Zhao one-shot me, you know? And after you've gotten that reality check, that's when you start respecting this champion a lot more. I'm pretty sure everyone has had to get this reality check before respecting Xin Zhao, because we all know what Lee Sin can do. We all know what Evelyn can do. We all know what Kha'Zix can do, what Vi can do. We all know that, right? But Xin Zhao is a bit of a weird champion where not everyone kind of knows how strong he really is, because it's a very niche pick. Not that many people play Xin Zhao, so not that many people really know what he even does. So when he jumps on you and blows you up, oftentimes that's a reality check. And I'm telling you right now, for the people that have not gotten that reality check yet, be careful of Xin Zhao. He's very, very strong right now. Talon really isn't. Again, I don't know what I was smoking when I was making this tier list. Talon is good. Like, don't get me wrong. Talon is very, very good. But the nerf hurt him. He cannot power farm jungle as much anymore. Oh, by the way, Viego clears the jungle the fastest out of everyone too. That's like another addition to the champion. But Talon used to be able to clear the jungle the fastest out of any jungler. Get himself giga fat and just gank lanes left and right. But now he cannot really do that anymore. And he got further nerfed in this patch. Not that much, but he got further nerfed. His second ability does less damage. And his ranged first ability does less damage too. So it's a bit unfortunate. I am definitely a Talon enjoyer, but he's not that strong anymore. Volibear jungle, very, very powerful. Early, mid game, you can just get your whole team ahead very, very easily. Of course, this problem late game is still a problem, but in the jungle, it's not as much of a problem really, because you'll have like a proper Baron laner hopefully, and then you as a jungler have done your duty by ganking lanes left and right and just winning every fight early on in the game. Lee Sin, very, very strong, like always, you know. Early game, no need to introduce him. He can gank level 2 already. He ganks left and right anyways. He can invade very well. He can secure objectives. He can steal objectives very well. And even in the late game, you know, it has always been a concern, Lee Sin's late game. But even in the late game, he can one-shot squishies. You just use your first ability on them, ult them, and then jump on them again. And most squishies are just gonna get one-shot when you do that. It's just nothing to do for them. And another champion that's all about one-shotting is Zed. Zed jungle, one of the most underrated picks in the jungle. I am an absolute, you know, Zed enjoyer, Zed jungle enjoyer especially. You gotta be very good at Zed. I do have to say, you gotta be very, very good at Zed to be able to clear your jungle as efficiently as possible, to be able to gank as good as possible, to be able to get as many kills as possible. Because as I said, you cannot really play it passively. You kind of have to be proactive, ganking left and right. Because if you let the enemy skill into the late game, you're not going to kill them easily anymore. Because Zed struggles in the late game. Not as much, but struggles in a sense where you're not going to be able to one-shot tanks. Enemies are going to have stasis enchant, right? Enemies are going to have Crown of the Shattered Queen. The enemy enchanter will have massive shields, heals, or whatever to sort of stop you from one-shotting enemies. So in the late game, it becomes a bit more of a struggle. But early mid game, you can snowball to the point where you get so fed that the enemies just can't make a comeback anymore, because the moment they enter their own jungle, you're just gonna kill the enemies yourself. Kindred, very, very powerful. Not as plus tier, I would say. I tried her, I played her. The nerf definitely hurt her quite a lot, but she's still very, very strong. Very, very strong champion. Like, this is also why I put her on the top of the S tier. She's just extremely powerful. Now, Pantheon Jungle is a bit of a different story. It's actually quite good, Pantheon Jungle, as opposed to Pantheon Baron Lane. And that's because you're not only playing against a tank, which is the enemy Baron Laner, you're actually playing into all of the enemies, which is gonna be tanks, squishies, all of that. So you of course want to mainly focus the squishy lanes, and in the early game you can even gank the tanks, because the tanks are not as tanky in the early stages of the game. So you can really snowball the game very hard early on in the game, and you're always going to be faster than the enemy jungler, because you have your ultimate, you can gank top and then you can ult bot, right? You'll be super quick to just gank left and right. Also, his objective control is very good. If you can rush Herald, for example, you can then ult to the dragon and stop the enemy from finishing off the dragon. Like, there's a lot of things Pantheon can do. And in the late game, he will struggle, but he'll still one-shot the squishies. So you can still find your place in the late game by building a proto belt and at least trading 1-for-1. You know what I mean? So like, late game, he's still very, very good in that sense. Camille Jungle, very good too. She has a decent jungle clear. The good thing about Camille Jungle is she'll reach level 5 before actually entering the game, right? You'll clear your entire jungle, you take the Scuttle Crab, and then you're level 5, you can gank. And her ganking is very strong because of that ultimate. And because she's jungle, she won't really struggle in lane as much. You can just hold your ground in the jungle, get yourself fed, and get to level 13 as fast as possible to start doing that crazy true damage, right? With your first ability. Fiddlesticks is very, very strong as well. His ultimate just blows up enemies. It is honestly one of my favorite abilities in the game. If you have good map awareness, good vision control, then Fiddlesticks is definitely the champion for you to play. He's difficult for champions that don't have good map control and good vision control. But for the people that do, like 100% pick up Fiddlesticks, you're gonna absolutely steamroll enemies with him. Master Yi got nerfed a little bit, but he's still very much a strong champion. But he's a bit more difficult now, in a sense where there's a lot of basic attack reset. Well, actually, he got buffed. His third ability got nerfed, the damage. But now whenever you activate his second ability, even if it gets interrupted, you're still gonna enjoy that 90% damage reduction for half a second. So you can actually, if you're very good at Master Yi, canceling abilities and all of that, canceling basic attacks, or resetting basic attacks, I should say, then this champion will be absolutely broken for you. Echo is very good too. Echo got buffed as well. He has always been okay, but now he's actually, middle S tier, which is very, very powerful. He absolutely destroys squishy champions. You can assassinate the hell out of them. Nautilus, I'm talking about full AP Nautilus right here, by the way, in case you're wondering. Full AP Nautilus is very strong, very good assassin in the jungle. I've never played it. Like, maybe I should try it, but I've honestly never played it, but I've seen it. I've seen how strong it really is. Mundo Jungle, quite good as well. His jungle clear is fine. It used to be better, but it's fine. It's like okay-ish. Aatrox Jungle is, again, same story as Aatrox Baron Lane. Everyone just feels faster for some reason. Or maybe he just doesn't fit the meta too well. He's okay, right? Don't get me wrong. He's in S tier in the Baron Lane, S tier in the jungle. But I'm saying it all in a weird way because Aatrox has always been S plus tier, right? It's like as if Kha'Zix suddenly becomes S tier. Of course, that's going to be a story, right? Of course, I'm going to have to talk about that. So it's just weird. He feels weaker. He just does feel weaker. Shyvana is an underrated champion. A lot of people think Shyvana is useless, but she's very strong, actually. Very strong, like S tier strong. You can definitely hard carry games with her. Of course, the only problem with Shyvana is when she doesn't have her dragon form, she's useless. So you really have to play around the dragon form. You really have to make it worthwhile using your ult, right? Vi also very underrated. Very strong jungler. Very tanky. And she can stick to a champion very easily. And she's very good for champions that just don't want to get caught. She can ult a champion and it doesn't matter where that champion goes. Like Aurelion Sol, for example. It doesn't matter where he tries to dash away to. She'll reach him with her ult, through walls, through whatever. And if he then flashes away afterwards, she'll have her first ability as well to reach him, and her second ability to get even more movement speed. So she's like definitely the champion. If you need to stick to the enemy, you want to pick Vi. Yone jungle is one of the most difficult junglers to play because you have to be able to time the tornado well to then use it for ganks. I don't play Yone jungle. I'm a very good Yone player, but I don't play Yone jungle because in my eyes it really requires a lot of good practice to be able to properly play Yone jungle. To properly time your tornado and then use your third ability, hit that tornado, hit that ult, and just hit those ganks. It's very high risk, but very high reward as well if you pull it off. Rammus jungle. Rammus got buffed. He's okay. Nothing too special. Nothing broken. He's just a bit faster now. He's just fine. Really nothing else to say about it. He doesn't really like playing against all of those tanks or all those true damage types of champions. But he's okay. He's definitely okay. You can play him and you can definitely do well with him. You know, Gragas is fine. Pyke jungle is a little weaker now. There's this new Pyke build where people build Trinity Force in the jungle. It's okay. His ganking is fine. He's very fast through the jungle. I don't really recommend it too much. But he has like a decent jungle clear, and Pyke is a very strong champion. But Pyke actually got nerfed. His third ability, stun duration, got nerfed by 0.25 seconds. Gwen jungle is actually garbage, but because of how strong the champion is, it still works in the jungle, right? Gwen's jungle clear is extremely slow. It got nerfed like half a year ago or something because it was just too broken. But as I said, the champion Gwen is so broken that you can still make it work. Even though it may take her over 2 minutes to clear the whole jungle, it's still gonna be worth your while because when you reach level 5, she's just gonna be so damn powerful. She'll hold her ground against any jungler in a 1v1. Diana jungle went from an extremely popular pick to a very unpopular pick right now. Again, not really fitting the meta right now. Not doing much against all the tanks that are good right now. She's still decent in the right draft. Actually, she's very good in the right draft. But in this tank meta, as I said, she just doesn't really work too well, unfortunately. Normally Nyla should be able to kill tanks. But the tank meta is so strong that even a Nyla cannot take care of most tanks. The tanks will just build a Thorn Mill, the buffed Thorn Mill. And Nyla's healing will be completely cut away. And she's actually gonna damage herself even. So Nyla just unfortunately doesn't work because early game you have nothing. Her ganking is useless. Everything is just useless early game. Of course with Nyla you want to farm until the late game. But even late game, she just cannot do as much as she's supposed to do. You know, same for Twitch. Twitch got nerfed to the point where he's just really not that strong anymore. He's really not that strong, unfortunately. He still works, definitely. Like, he's okay. You can go Blade of the King into tanks. That's all fine. But he's just not that strong anymore. Riven, yet again, before the rework, you definitely don't want to be playing Riven right now. She's like a weaker Aatrox, and Aatrox is already not that strong. I think after the rework, Riven is going to be S tier or even S plus tier. But right now, she's just chilling in the bottom of the A tier. Shen jungle, same story, right? Shen jungle is quite good, but not anything better than B tier because in solo queue, you don't really want to trust your random teammates. Morgana jungle, she's fine, nothing special. If you need a lot of magic damage, you can, or sustained magic damage, and you're the last pick, you can pick Morgana jungle, but besides that, you never really want to first pick it or anything. Fizz jungle is fine, Nunu jungle is fine. Kill jungle is actually decent, but I still think it's not that good. If an enemy knows what he's doing, they're just gonna invade you and you just cannot do anything. So he's fine, but if the enemies are just a little smart, they're simply gonna invade you and you just cannot do anything. Amumu got buffed. Some Fire Ages got buffed, but he's still trash. What can I say, guys? Jace, I don't even want to talk about Jace. I hate Jace. Graves jungle, you know, he got buffed, but he's still useless. Fiora, Jax, Warwick, Rengar. I mean, Rengar is not that weak, though. Rengar is not that weak. He's like this. Kayn jungle, look at this champion. Isn't this ridiculous how low I've put him? I don't know if I put him too low, but the nerfs were so hefty that you're just not gonna be able to play him anymore. He's not, I actually think he's not playable anymore. Blue Kayn is not gonna one-shot people anymore, and Red Kayn is not gonna shred people as much anymore. He's not gonna heal up anymore because his abilities do so much. How do you say it? A lot less damage. 20% AD scaling got removed from his second ability. Also 10% AD scaling from his ultimate, I believe, but it's mainly the second ability. So it used to do so much damage, which in my eyes was broken, to be fair. But I just think he's pretty much useless now. I honestly have to try him. If he's not useless, he's maximum A tier. Maximum. Like this is there's no way he's S tier with the current stats that he has right now. And then again, Wukong, I mean honestly delete this champion. Probably the worst rework after Sona rework. Well, actually, a lot of people do enjoy the Sona rework, but in my eyes, it's the worst rework the Wukong got received. Wukong received. Sometimes I just can't speak. Definitely the worst rework. He's so unsatisfying to play as well right now. Wait, my mic is glitching. Let me refresh my mic real quick. Test. Okay, my mic is good again. I wonder how long my mic had been glitching. Hopefully not too long. But yes, let's continue talking. This is the mid lane, and in my eyes, Twisted Fate S+ tier. Almost broken tier. The fact that he has a global ultimate to stun anyone he wants, wherever he wants, whenever he wants, that screams S+ tier to me. And then not only that, he actually, normally he's not that good into tanks, but for some reason, he's actually fine into the tanks. Just stunning a tank. When a tank tries to engage on your team, you as a TF can stun that tank for 2 seconds and your team can do a lot of damage to them. So like, even though you as a Twisted Fate are not necessarily going to take down the tank, you will still contribute in a good way in a team fight by stopping the tank from engaging on your team, right? Like a Darius tries to go in, you stun him, and then your team half-lives the Darius, and that already takes away half the power the Darius has, right? So in that sense, he also sort of counters the tanks. There's really nothing that counters Twisted Fate that's good right now. I'm saying that's good right now, because Fizz hard counters Twisted Fate, but Fizz is not a strong champion right now. It's not a strong champion right now. Zed is probably one of the only problems of Twisted Fate. A good Zed will absolutely demolish Twisted Fate. Zoe may also be a bit of a problem, but besides that, it's honestly done. Like, there's no real other champions that are very problematic for Twisted Fate. Like Lilia, for example. Twisted Fate will destroy Lilia because she's super fast, right? But no, Twisted Fate doesn't care. He's just gonna stun her anyways. It's a point-and-click stun, right? So he's very good into these mobile champions that are very strong in the current meta. Akali, very good in the mid lane. She has so much damage. She can absolutely demolish those squishy champions, except for Twisted Fate, because his ult will reveal her during a shroud. But Akali is just such a strong assassin. Her ganks are very good as well. You know, those all-ins with that ultimate, very, very good. And in team fights as well, she's very powerful with that almighty ultimate that she has. And now Aurelion Sol, he actually got a pretty hefty nerf, but he's still S+ tier. He's still so strong. Definitely weaker than before though, I do want to say that much. He went from broken tier to S+ tier. I feel like he needs slightly more nerfing. He got nerfed twice already. 3 times actually. He got nerfed thrice? I think thrice is a word. He got nerfed 3 times already. But he's still S+ tier. But like now, balanced S+ tier. Like an actual S+ tier, not just broken S+ tier. By the way guys, make sure you give the like button a smash as well. Let's make that like button broken as well, as in like break the like button, because a lot of people click on it. You know, it's a joke. Whatever, I'm wasting time for you guys. Zoe. Zoe is so strong. I've been underrating Zoe very recently. I think I put her in the S tier in my recent tier list. I think that's what I remember at least. But she's definitely not S tier. She's S+ tier. She still does so much damage. But in my eyes, Zoe is quite difficult to play. But definitely S+ tier champion. She's very, very powerful. Still one-shots people very easily. Just overall, super solid champion. Super solid pick in the mid lane. Zed mid lane. I would say Zed is like, I don't know if I'm just an avid Zed enjoyer, but I think Zed is extremely powerful, even right now. You know, Zed is the only assassin, I want to be careful saying this, Zed is the only assassin that can out-trade ranged enemies. Is that true? Out-trade as in short trades, you know what I mean? Not all-ins. Because Zed can use his shadow to then hit his shurikens and all of that. So like, he will be able to out-trade an Orianna or an Ahri, who normally are champions that will destroy you in the lane, right? With small trades. So that, adding to it that Zed can just one-shot you with his ultimate, that Zed has very good ganks, that Zed's ultimate cooldown is very, very low, makes Zed such a solid pick in the mid lane. Like, his ganking is not as strong as Akali, his team fighting is not as strong as Akali, but his assassination is way stronger. So like, in my eyes, Akali is stronger than Zed, but this definitely keeps Zed pretty high up in the S+ tier regardless. Yasuo mid lane, very powerful. And I'm talking about crit Yasuo and tank Yasuo, both of them. Both of them just work. Sorry. He's just a very strong champion. There's a lot of knockups in Wild Rift as well. So as long as you just have some knockup champions in your team, you can just pick Yasuo and just ult whoever gets knocked up and just destroy them. He's a very, very solid pick in the mid lane. Vladimir mid, I prefer him in the Baron lane because in the mid lane he can struggle a little bit into some of the mid laners, like Kazanin for example, hard counters Vladimir, but also some of the ranged champions can be a bit annoying for him to deal with, like Orianna for example can just bully him before he can even reach her. But just then again, it's Vladimir, it's a broken kit. In my eyes, he should not even be a champion. His kit is just stupid. It's honestly just stupid, but whatever. He's a champion and I gotta rate him in my tier list. Katarina has fallen off a little bit, but of course still S+ tier. I just don't feel like Katarina is as strong anymore. You know, I remember back in the days when Katarina would ult, it was like literally hell blades rained upon you. You just felt like there's nothing to do. But right now, the damage does feel a bit underwhelming, you know what I mean? Like it feels a bit underwhelming. I'm saying a bit because it's still a lot of damage, but it's a bit underwhelming. But still, S+ tier. Good Katarina will definitely carry most games. Syndra went from top S+ tier all the way to the bottom. She got nerfed recently. She's still very strong, but just not broken anymore. It's not like giga broken where you cannot deal with it anymore. But she's definitely still very much a strong champion. Brand got buffed. He was already good, and now I think this is the first time I've ever put Brand in the S+ tier. I am an absolute firm Brand believer. I 100% believe in Brand being S+ tier right now. I know it's bottom S+ tier, but he's extremely powerful. He's so strong in the tank meta especially. And now you can spam his abilities more easily because they don't cost a lot of mana. Well, they still cost a lot of mana, but the mana cost is reduced. So you can use your abilities a whole lot more often. And especially combined with the mana boots and maybe even a mana flow band, you shouldn't be running out of mana as much anymore. That was a big problem of Brand, right? Like his mana problem. Kazanin is very strong as well. And there's a lot of different builds that came out on Kazanin. You know, people are not really building World of Ages anymore because they want instant power. So the new Infinity Orb, is actually very good on Kazanin because you're already going to be critting on the enemies when they're below 45% HP. So ulting an enemy and just spamming all of your abilities, you're essentially guaranteed a kill whenever the enemy is below 50% HP because of that, you know, the Infinity Orb. So in my eyes, that definitely makes Kazanin a very, very strong champion. Now, Lilia is so broken that even in the mid lane, she's top S tier. Honestly ridiculous. She's not even supposed to be a mid laner. But she's S tier. She's so good. She's so broken that you can just pick her in the mid lane and do absolutely fine against most champions. And of course, late game, Lilia as Lilia, you're just going to destroy the enemy. Lux is very strong too. Her one-shotting potential is just as good as it has always been. Lux is just Lux, you know what I mean? Like there's not much to speak about her. Fizz is okay. I think I've rated him a bit too high, but I just feel like a good Fizz will definitely be able to do very well into those squishier champions. But honestly, I feel like maybe I've overrated him just a tad bit. Now, someone that I have not overrated is Echo. Again, Echo is very powerful right now. I really want to emphasize on how strong Echo really is right now. Just checking on my mic. Test. Okay, the mic seems fine, but like this, maybe it's a bit better. I apologize, guys. Sometimes I get some technical difficulties. So yeah, Echo, his ultimate, of course, makes him so good because it allows you to just dive so deep. Like, no one can really dive as deep as Echo because Echo can just ult out, right? But the only thing you gotta be careful about this is there's a lot of one-shotting potential in this current meta, as well as tanks. And both of these things Echo does not like, right? Because you're not gonna one-shot tanks. And you don't want to get one shot. Because as an Echo, you can dive in, get stunned, and get one shot. So you want to be very cautious about those things. But if you can play around that, he's definitely S tier, mid S tier. Orianna, very good pick into tanks, right? Like, and very good pick into long range stuff. You want to be careful of assassins though, because as an Orianna, you can't really do much against assassins that are very mobile. But she's just a very, very strong pick into the rest of the meta, really, you could say. She's just a good pick overall. Yone mid, not as good as Baron lane, but still good in the mid lane. But in the mid lane, you're probably going to be building him slightly differently. You're going to go for more crit, right? You want to one-shot enemies with crit. It's a bit more difficult to catch enemies with your ultimate in the mid lane because, you know, they're not slow tanks. They're actually mobile champions if you look at what champions we're talking about. But if you're against like a Brand or something who's not mobile at all, of course, you can absolutely destroy him. Lucian mid is fine. Nothing special, he's just fine. Swain got buffed massively, but he's not as strong mid lane. But still S tier. Mid lane Swain is definitely S tier. And now Irelia mid lane is very strong. In a sense, like she counters a lot of those squishier champions, like Aurelion Sword, someone. She should destroy ASOL in mid lane. But in the current meta, she just doesn't work very well. So like, she's a good counter in her lane. She will win most lanes, and she may even get fed quite often. But she cannot really translate getting fed into wins very easily in the current meta. It's not like before where you would just run down the mid lane and then absolutely run down the whole enemy team. She can still do that, but it's a lot more difficult than what it used to be. Same with Ahri, right? She's decent in lane, she's decent with ganks to say the least. In late games, she's decent with like catching people with a charm and one-shotting them, but you're only gonna one-shot them if you're like very ahead. If you don't get ahead on Ahri, she's useless. So why would you take the risk, you know what I mean? But like, I put her in the top A tier because if she gets ahead, which kind of is the point of playing Ahri, she'll be very strong and she'll just one-shot people very easily with her charm. Akshan is only really there for his passive. Now, honestly, he does pretty well in lane, as in like, his first ability is good in lane. And if you're good with using his third ability, which is extremely difficult, by the way, that brings Akshan up to the S tier. But then again, I'm making this tiers for your average player. But like for me, I'm actually very good at Akshan. For me, Akshan is an S tier champion. Because I can use that third ability to just do so much damage to enemy champions while slinging around. Corki is very good. Manamune got buffed, which directly buffs his damage. Because you're always building a Manamune on him. He's good, but nothing special, just good. Mid lane Morgana is fine too. She does a lot of damage. She actually does more damage than you think though, that's the thing. She's just fine. Annie mid lane, definitely not the old Annie anymore. She's not gonna one-shot. She's just not a strong champion right now. Pyke mid lane is fine. Jace mid lane is fine. Veigar is okay. AP Misfortune is fine. Ziggs is, you know, weaker than you would think. Diana mid lane has fallen off like crazy. I don't know. She's just not good anymore for some reason. She just really doesn't do that much. Vex you don't want to play. Kill mid lane, absolute garbage. Cannon mid lane, you know, never ever ever play that stuff anymore. It used to be S tier in my eyes. Now it's C tier after the nerf because he just doesn't do any damage. And the champion that you should honestly never even pick in mid, never even look at in mid lane is Zyra. Zyra is already a pretty weak support, but in mid lane, never pick her in the mid lane. So next up is the ADC role. I'm not gonna talk too long about the ADC and the support roles because there's just not that much to talk about. Like in the ADC role, Kai'Sa is overall always gonna be a good champion. Can be a little bit annoying if the enemies have a lot of long range, but like Kai'Sa does well into tanks. She does really well into assassins because if someone assassinates you, you can just ult away, get the shield and kill them. And she's very good at 1v1s as well. And in team fights, she's also very good. She can only really struggle against like long range bullying or anything like that. But like overall, she's the best ADC. Next, we got Varus. You know, you can play Lethality Varus, you can play the on-hit Varus. Make sure you guys check out the on-hit Varus build that I released. It's an extremely good build. You go lethal tempo on Varus and you just build on-hit. So make sure you guys check that out. He's very strong still. Like his on-hit build, even though it's not as popular anymore, it's still just as strong as it used to be. I really want to emphasize on that. It's really funny how it works, right? Like there's a lot of stuff that's just as strong as before, or maybe even stronger, but people just don't really pick it because other people are not playing it. You know what I mean? Or because content creators are not talking about it. But there are champions that are still extremely good. And people just don't know they're good. And then it's funny because at some point, someone will figure out they're good again. Someone will start spamming that champion again. And then everyone will suddenly play that. Whenever the top 1, top 2, and top 3 people change their builds, that's when the whole meta is going to shift, right? Because then people are like, wait, what the hell? AP Zeri works, for example. They're going to think that. So that's a bit of a funny thing. Because definitely Lethal Tempo Varus with the Bladed Little King, with the Runan's Hurricane, and with Terminus, and with all of that, completely broken right now. Xayah is a champion I don't really like, but I gotta admit, she's extremely strong right now. S+ tier. Her feathers just do way too much damage. Her basic attacks hurt like crazy. She can chase down anyone with her second ability, movement speed, and all of that. And when enemies chase her down, you're walking into her trap. She's gonna root you, destroy you. She can ult as well. She can just do whatever the hell she wants, and she's always gonna outdamage you. It really feels like that. And with an enchanter, she's even more dangerous. Like, just overall, very, very strong champion. Tristana as well. The only weakness of Tristana is early game her range is very low. But if you just get to like level 7, 8, 9, her range becomes adequate to be able to actually just carry the game. You'll have more than enough. And of course then level 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, that's when it becomes broken. Like the range absolutely becomes broken. And her turret pushing is very quick as well. That's another addition to her. She works very well with tanks and with enchanters. And she doesn't really have counters. That's the good thing about her. She doesn't really have counters. As long as you just don't get dumpstered early game, you are gonna outskill most ADCs. Ezreal is very good as well, and he got even better now because yet again, Mura mana gives you more AD right now. It's like 0.5% extra. You're gonna have like 3000 mana, so you're actually gonna be getting around 15 extra attack damage, maybe 10 to 15 extra, which is quite a lot if you ask me. Like, it's like a 5 to 10% increase to the damage that your first ability will do, depending on how far the game has been going. So, you know, the Mura mana change definitely is a good thing for Ezreal. He was already pretty good, but now he's like even better than that. Definitely just sitting comfortably in the S tier. Someone else that's sitting comfortably in the S tier, but not higher, is Jhin. You know, I love Jhin, but I gotta be fair to him. He's like bottom S plus tier right now. He does a lot of damage, and even into tanks, he actually does fine in the current meta. But it feels like there are just other ADCs that are a lot more powerful than him. And he's not like game-breaking broken or anything like that. He's just good. Just good. Now, Samira is also quite good. In a duo queue match, I would rate her S tier. But because it's solo queue, I rate her like top of A tier. As long as you just have a human support, you know, someone with a brain that functions for at least 50%, that can hit some CC, Samira will be very, very strong in the game. Like, you can just follow up and ult and all of that. Very solid champion. Kalista is good in the Dragon lane. I mean, I would honestly say in the Baron lane she's better, but in the Dragon lane she's still very, very solid. But the problem is she just doesn't have much range. She really doesn't have much range. However, if you reach a stage of the game where you get super strong, you can just engage, stack up the lethal tempo, and absolutely demolish the enemy. They cannot run away, right? There is no running from Kalista. Lucian has fallen. Not necessarily because he got nerfed or anything like that. For some reason, he just has fallen. Sometimes a champion will just get weak because of the meta, new items or whatever. He's still good, but he just doesn't feel as strong as before anymore. He used to be broken tier. You guys remember that, right? Zeri is fine. You know, she's good. It's funny because I'm saying, you know, Lucian has fallen, but he's still very much strong. Like, A tier are still strong champions. Just really want to emphasize on that. Zeri is fine. But, you know, she can hold her ground early game with her first ability and all that, but she's just fine. Late game, she's very strong, but nothing special. Senna support is also fine. Oh, sorry, Senna ADC is also fine. She just does good damage. She's also good into tanks because her passive does percentage HP damage, right? So she's just overall quite good. Caitlyn, on the other hand, struggles into tanks, but for some reason she feels okay-ish enough for me to put her in the A tier. Her traps are just very good into the bruiser types of champions, into the Lee Sins, into the assassins, right? So if you're against a lot of assassin types of champions, you can just pick Caitlyn and spam your traps and use your net as well, which is the third ability to just take care of the assassins. Sivir used to be S tier, but she got nerfed then. So now, unfortunately, she's just chilling at the A tier. She's not broken anymore. She's not, sorry, not broke. She's not very good anymore. Ashe sucks. Vayne sucks. Jinx sucks. Corki, meh. Misfortune sucks. With the rework, I think Misfortune will be A tier. And then below that, I'm not even going to talk about them. Let's now get to the support tiers. Again, this one I'm not going to talk about too long because really not much has changed. Yuumi is broken tier. Lulu is almost broken tier. Soraka is almost broken tier. I really just honestly don't even want to talk about them because nothing has really changed. Janna is very strong. Thresh is very good for the people that are good at Thresh. And Nami is also very good, but I really want to emphasize Yuumi, Lulu, Soraka, and Janna are a lot better than Nami. Like, the difference is quite fast. But we got a new contender for the S plus tier, guys. We got Swain, and he actually did win. He entered the S plus tier. He's not even a contender anymore. Swain's support is giga broken. I'm saying giga, but like, not giga broken, but he's just very strong. Very, very, very strong. The new buffs, he does so much more damage. He's a lot more tanky. He heals more. Everything got buffed about this champion. Very, very solid pick in the support role right now. Definitely pick him, guys. Like, now, I have videos on it as well. So like, make sure you check it out, the Swain videos. أنا قلت لك هيخلصنا. but as needed. So Lux support is very good as well. Just because you can still one-shot people as a support. It's ridiculous. You can just go full AP, use your shielding in lane to just be able to actually trade with the enemy, and you'll just be fine in lane, really. You can still just one-shot them. Pike support got nerfed. He's not really S+ tier anymore, but he's solid S tier. Solid S tier, like near S+ tier. His stun is not as broken anymore. Like, you guys remember how long that stun duration was? It's now really not that long anymore. It's still pretty long, but it just doesn't feel obnoxiously long anymore, which is a good thing. Like, he's in a good spot right now in my eyes. Braum support is very good as well. Nothing special, just very, very good. And then Karma support, she does a lot of damage, and her ult, actually Karma is actually quite good. Like, very, very good champion. She does so much damage as a support. Her rooting ability is very strong in lane. You know, especially if you combine it with an Ezreal, for example. When she can root enemies in lane, it gives Ezreal a free hit on his first ability or his ultimate. So, like, you can very easily win lane by just oppressing them with that Karma root. This is an ability not that many people utilize very well. A lot of people that play Karma just spam their first ability and their ult and think Karma is all about that and just shield, right? But the second ability is a very underrated ability, especially the empowered second ability. Senna support, very, very solid pick. Just does really well. Her ult is very good. She does good damage. Very, very punishing support champion in the lane. Like, the enemies can really not overextend into her because she's just gonna do so much damage to them. Soraka, you know, you can put your average player on Soraka right now. Sona. And they're just gonna do well. It's so easy, so easy to play Sona. Just literally your average Joe picks her up, stuns people, heals his team, whatever. It's gonna be fine. It's gonna be S tier. Really nothing to say about it. Nautilus support, very good champion as well. You want to be careful of the draft though. There are some, like, you don't want to engage into sort of a engage baiting comp like a Braum and a Xayah and a Kalista and a Varus, you know, those types of, or a Darius, all of those types of champions that want you to engage. You want to be very careful with Nautilus, because Nautilus, even though he has a lot of CC, he's a very slow engager. He's not like Blitzcrank, he's not like Thresh or Leona or those types of champions. He's a very slow engager, right? So the only thing you really want to be careful of when you pick Nautilus is take a look at the enemies. Do they have champions that can punish you very well after you engage? If the answer is no, that makes Nautilus S+ tier. But I put him in the bottom S tier because there are quite a lot of champions that can punish him for engaging. Blitzcrank, I've been underrating Blitzcrank for quite a while. Even though I'm a really good Blitzcrank myself, he's definitely S tier. Like, if you're good at landing the hooks, very, very strong. In duo queue, he's S+ tier if you play with a good player. But in solo queue, he's just S tier. Alistar, chilling in the A tier, nothing special, but just A tier. Gragas support, A tier. Tank, Varus support, A tier. Don't forget about this one, yet again, very, very strong. Leona support is A tier as well, nothing too special, but like the only thing is she does really well into those long range squishy champions like Orianna, like Varus, like Caitlyn, like Ashe, like Jinx, you know, those types of champions. Leona does really, really well against them because of course she can just ult them from miles away and just go in and stun them and not give them any chance to do anything. Set support, very good, much better in duo queue, but even in solo queue, he's just very, very solid. Galio support can roam around a lot, very nice. Seraphine support is only really good into a heavy melee dominated comp. She works really well into melee champions. And then Ashe support also still very much playable. But then Rakan in my eyes is just absolute garbage. Zyra, you don't even play Zyra, guys. So almost an hour long. Thank you very much for watching, and I will see you all in the next Wild Rift video. Bye bye.